Today, we venture into a forgotten graveyard where the wind does nothing but weep. This was once hailed as the Eternal Kingdom, but today it barely breathes beneath a suffocating glowing orange plague. When you first descend into the ruins of Hellenist armed with nothing but a dull, rusty nail, you easily mistake yourself for a cute, curious little wanderer. But you are wrong. You are no hero. You are merely a stray fragment of a colossal, quiet vacuum born from the unchecked pride of a god, the desperate cowardice of a king, and the cold-blooded slaughter of millions of your own siblings. It is time to tear away the charming, hand-drawn facade of this world and peer into the pitch-black abyss underneath. Because in Hellenist, no light is truly innocent, and every beautiful dream is just the prologue to a waking nightmare. To truly understand this tragedy, we have to look back at an era before the name Hollownist was ever uttered, when the earth was still untouched by civilization. Back then, the underground was wild and chaotic, yet it maintained a flawless internal balance. Bugs dug through the dirt, hunted, and died in a feral cycle. But this wasn't life as we define it. No creature carried a name. No one possessed a personal dream, a secret fear, a lingering regret, or a hope for tomorrow. Uniqueness had not yet been invented. They were simply biological cogs in a massive machine. They were all bound to a single, absolute cosmic mind known as the Radiance. She was no mere physical beast, but the primordial deity of the dream realm, weaving every mind into a warm, hypnotic hive. Within this collective consciousness, there was no individual identity, which meant there was no capability to suffer. No free will meant no rebellion. While this might look like a peaceful paradise from the outside, a philosophical lens reveals a darker truth. A world where your mind is entirely occupied by a god is simply the most flawless form of slavery. This eternal order shattered when a titanic cosmic entity drifted in from the bleak, ash-choked wastes beyond the kingdom's edge. A worm. These ancient leviathans possess powers so absolute that even their deaths reshape the fabric of reality. This massive beast collapsed and died at the edge of the world, leaving its decomposing shell to shed a perpetual blizzard of white ash over the cliffs. Yet, this death was actually a grand metamorphosis. Out of the colossal, decaying corpse stepped a small, elegant being radiating a cold, pale glow. The Pale King. Looking upon the mindless bugs by the Radiance's warmth, he offered them the most dangerous, intoxicating, and heavy gift in the universe: reason. With his pale light, he severed their ties to the hive mind. Suddenly, a bug could look at its own hands and ask, "Who am I?" He taught them architecture, philosophy, law, and art. The wild beasts became citizens. They excavated glowing crystal mines, cultivated lush royal gardens, and built the magnificent city of tears beneath a perpetual indoor rain. The Pale King gave them a grand civilization, but no god gives away such a miracle for free. The tax on free will was absolute worship. As the newly enlightened populace turned their prayers toward their white monarch, they completely forgot their old creator. Even the Moth tribe, once the closest to the light, turned their backs on her. For a mortal, being forgotten is a tragedy. For a god, it is literal death. The Radiance was erased from the waking world and exiled to the deepest, most vulnerable corners of the subconscious. Believing his kingdom of logic and stone would stand forever, the Pale King proudly celebrated his victory. But dreams are where intellect is defenseless. The king could build towering walls around his borders, but he could not fortify a citizen's mind while they slept. From the depths of the dream realm, the forgotten goddess began to whisper back. This wasn't a plague born of medicine. It was a cosmic war against individual thought. The Radiance whispered a seductive promise: throw away the heavy, agonizing burden of logic and return to the blissful peace of the hive mind. When a bug's willpower finally fractured, the mental corruption manifested physically. Their eyes leaked a horrific, glowing orange fluid, and their bodies swelled with sick cysts. They called it the infection. It wiped away all humanity, turning scholars into rabid zombies and neighbors into wild beasts. The kingdom was rotting from within, and you cannot cut a light with a sword. The Pale King soon realized a devastating truth. Light can only be trapped by its polar opposite, a completely empty, absolute darkness. He turned his eyes to the deepest pit of the world, to harness the void, an ancient, volatile substance that acts as the absolute antithesis of life. It is darkness given physical form, entirely devoid of emotion or intellect. The king's plan was brutal. He would forge a perfect vessel from this vacuum to seal the radiance inside. But if this vessel possessed even a microscopic crack of emotion or thought, the light would exploit it and shatter the container, to breed a perfectly empty being. The monarch became history's most rudderless executioner. He and his queen, the White Lady, produced hundreds of thousands of offspring, dumping the eggs directly into the crushing ink-black waters of the abyss. The darkness hollowed out the newborns, leaving only drops of nothingness trapped within porcelain shells. Millions of these children perished in the dark, but one managed to scale the mountain of its siblings' corpses. Its eyes held nothing but a deep, bottomless vacuum. It felt no grief, no malice, no love. The king had found his flawless weapon. He sealed the rest of his tragic children in the dark forever, took the chosen one and trained it into a legendary warrior, the Hollow Knight. The day of the ritual arrived. The king forcefully pulled the blazing, maddening light of the radiance into the Hollow Knight, binding the vessel with heavy chains deep inside the Black Egg Temple. The plague ceased, and the king claimed ultimate victory. But the rigid plans of rulers always fracture when faced with the unpredictable nature of emotion. The Hollow Knight was not perfectly empty. During their long training together, the Pale King had briefly lowered his cold mask, looking down at his creation with a single, fleeting moment of fatherly affection. In that silent glance, a single drop of love took root in the vessel's hollow chest. That tiny emotional crack was all the radiance needed. She bled into it, growing until the chains rusted and the vessel's psyche shattered. The infection exploded back into hollowness 1,000 times more violent than before. Driven mad by his catastrophic failure, the Pale King hid his entire palace inside the Dream Realm, abandoning his subjects to the rot. Centuries later, you crawl out of the dark. One of millions of discarded, flawed children who escaped the abyss, survived the memory-erasing ash storms, and carried only a broken nail. You are not a destined hero, but a mistake walking over the graves of your siblings. Yet you are the one who breaks the seals of the dreamers Monoman, Lurian, and Hera, who sacrificed their waking lives to keep the prison shut. When the final seal falls, you enter the Black Egg and face your massive brother, the Hollow Knight. But the fight twists into tragedy. He turns his own blade against his chest, not to defeat you, but to tear out the goddess, destroying his mind, silently begging you to end his endless torment. If you simply slay him and take the infection into yourself, the cycle resets, and you become the next chained prisoner. But there is another path. By confronting your origin, you awaken the void heart and become master of the dark. With Hornet's help, you strike into your brother's infected mind and face the true source, the radiance, burning like a furious sun. This is not a duel between bugs, but an ancient collision of light and dark. As she prepares to destroy you, your brother's shadow rises, holding her still long enough for your mask to crack open. Then the rage of millions of dead children floods out like pure midnight. As the Lord of Shades, you suffocate the sun, tear it from the sky, and end the Orange Plague. The abyss goes quiet, and countless lost souls find peace. Hallownest's story is not good versus evil. The Radiance feared being forgotten, the Pale King drowned his children in pride, and you were only an empty tool made to fix a cosmic mistake. In the end, the ruins whisper one truth. Emotion can destroy the world, and sometimes only a cold, absolute void can save it.